Are you telling me to stay away? I asked quietly. Her eyes lifted to mine again. I'm telling you I don't know what I'm doing. That should have been the end of it. I should have stood up, laughed it off, said something harmless. But instead, I leaned in. Not enough to touch, just enough to feel the pull between us like static before a storm. You're not the only one, I said. The words hung there, fragile, reckless. She looked at me for a long second, like she might say something that would change everything. Then the barista called out, "Chamomile tea for Vale." She stood quickly, relief and regret flickering across her face. "Take care of yourself, Ryan," she said softly. She walked away before I could answer, the faint scent of her perfume lingering in the space she'd left behind. I sat there long after she was gone, the untouched coffee cooling in my hands, wondering if maybe the worst kind of distance is the one you choose, because it's the only way not to fall. I hadn't seen her for over a week, long enough to convince myself that maybe it had been nothing, that whatever passed between us in the cafeteria was just misplaced affection, tension built from too many quiet rooms and not enough boundaries. Then she texted, "Can you stop by my office before you leave today?" No explanation, just that. By the time I walked in, the sun was setting behind her, turning the glass walls into mirrors of orange and shadow. She was standing near her desk, arms folded, the kind of posture people use when they don't know whether they're about to apologize or defend themselves. "Ryan," she said, "you're avoiding me." I forced a smile. "I thought you wanted that." Her laugh came out uneven. "I don't know what I want anymore." There was that silence again, the one that always made everything else sound too loud. I noticed the faint crease in her blouse sleeve, the chipped corner of her nail polish, the way she exhaled before saying anything real. I didn't mean to cross A. I was only supposed to drop off the folder and leave. 10 minutes, max. That's what I told myself when I stepped into her office that morning. Half-lit, quiet, the kind of silence that hums with the sound of a ticking clock and the faint rhythm of someone's breathing. She was behind her desk, reading glasses low on her nose, hair pulled up like she was too focused to notice how perfect it looked that way. Mrs. Vale, my best friend's mother, the woman who'd known me since high school. "Ryan," she said without looking up. "He's not here. Went to grab coffee. You can wait if you want." I hesitated at the door, folder in hand. "I'll just drop this off, ma'am." She finally looked up then, a brief glance, but it hit harder than it should have. There was something tired in her eyes, something that made me forget how to breathe for half a second. "Ma'am," she echoed softly, as if the word didn't fit anymore. I stepped closer, placing the folder on her desk. My hand brushed a stack of papers, sending them sliding across the surface. She reached for them at the same time I did, and our fingers met, just the barest touch, but enough to make both of us pause. The clock ticked louder. "Sorry," I said quickly, my voice breaking the stillness. She didn't pull her hand away right away. "No harm done," she murmured. Her voice had that calm steadiness, like she was used to putting out fires before they even started. But her thumb moved, a small, unconscious shift, against my knuckle before she let go, and I swear it lingered longer than it should have. I sat down, pretending not to notice the way she rubbed her temple with the edge of her glasses, or how her blouse had one button undone at the top, revealing the delicate curve of her collarbone. She asked small questions about school, work, life, but her tone wasn't conversational. It was searching. Outside, the wind rattled against the glass. Inside, the air felt too warm. At one point she dropped her pen, and I bent to pick it up. Our eyes met when I handed it back. Close enough that I could see the faint crease at the corner of her mouth, the one that deepened when she tried not to smile. "Thanks," she whispered. That was it. Nothing happened. No confession, no mistake. Just that. Her voice low, my hand still half extended, the air between us suspended and fragile. Then the sound of footsteps echoed in the hallway, her son's voice faintly calling, "Mom?" She straightened fast, pushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "He's back," she said, almost to herself. I stood up, pretending to fix my sleeve. But as I turned to leave, I caught her watching me, not with guilt, not even surprise, but with something else. Something that said we both felt it. And that was the moment I realized I shouldn't have stayed. I told myself not to go back. But by Friday, I was standing outside her office again, holding a file I didn't even need to deliver. "Ryan." Her voice carried that same blend of surprise and caution, as if she'd been thinking about me but didn't want to admit it. Your son said you needed the expense reports. I lifted the folder a little. It was a lie, and she probably knew it. She gave a half smile, one that never quite reached her eyes. He could have emailed those. I shrugged, pretending to look at the framed photos on the wall. Her at a company dinner, her son as a kid, a few certificates. Her life arranged neatly, the opposite of how mine felt. Do you want coffee? She asked after a pause. Sure. She poured from the pot on the credenza, the steam curling between us. I noticed her hand tremble just slightly when she handed me the mug. She was always composed, but there was something fragile in her stillness, like a note held too long. I heard you got the internship, she said. Your professor emailed me about it. I nodded. Yeah, it's temporary. I start next month. Her gaze lingered a moment longer than polite. That's good. You need to get out of here. Out of? She trailed off. Out of what? She set her mug down, eyes shifting to the window. Old patterns. There was a silence that neither of us knew how to fill. The clock ticked again, that same insistent sound that had haunted our first moment days ago. She changed the subject, asking about my work, but her tone had softened. Between sentences, she'd twist the ring on her finger, not a wedding band, but something smaller, simpler. I wondered if it was habit or defense. You ever regret staying somewhere too long? I asked quietly. Her hand froze mid-motion. Every day, she said before catching herself. Then she gave a light laugh, the kind that tries to erase honesty. But that's just life, isn't it? She looked up, and our eyes met. There was no pretense this time, no polite smile. Just the truth. Two people realizing they'd crossed from curiosity into something neither could name. When I moved to set my coffee down, my hand brushed hers again. She didn't pull away immediately. The faint tremor from her earlier was gone. Her hand was steady now. Ryan, she said softly, almost warningly. You should go. I know. But I didn't move. Not yet. The air felt thick, too still. She drew a slow breath, then stepped back, the distance small, but deliberate. Her voice, when she spoke again, was gentler. You remind me too much of a time I thought I'd outgrown. And there it was, the reason it felt wrong, the reason it mattered. Before I could answer, her phone rang. She turned toward it, breaking the spell, her shoulders squaring like armor. I left quietly, without saying goodbye. But just before the door closed, I heard her whisper, low, almost inaudible. Don't make this harder. The click of the latch echoed louder than it should have. And for the rest of the day, I couldn't decide if she was warning me, or herself. I saw her again by accident. Or maybe I'd stopped believing in accidents. It was late afternoon, the office cafeteria nearly empty. I'd been waiting for my coffee, scrolling aimlessly, when I heard her voice at the counter. Low, careful, the same tone she used when she didn't want to be overheard. Mrs. Vale, I said before I could stop myself. She turned, startled. Then she smiled. That restrained, professional smile she wore like a shield. Ryan, you're still here. Deadline, I lied. My pulse gave me away. She ordered a tea, then nodded toward my table. Mind if I sit? I tried to sound casual. Sure. She sat across from me, setting her bag beside the chair. The steam from her cup drifted up, blurring the air between us. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. You didn't reply to my email, she said finally. I started to. Deleted it. Her brow furrowed. Why? Because I didn't know how to write what I wanted to say. Because every sentence sounded like a confession. Because the space between us already felt too thin. I didn't want to sound unprofessional, I said instead. Her lips curved, almost a smile. Since when have you worried about that? We both laughed then, too suddenly, too loudly. And just like that, the air shifted, lighter, warmer. For a brief, dangerous moment, we weren't forbidden anything. We were just two people who understood each other's laughter. She reached to steady her cup, her fingers brushing mine across the table. The touch wasn't accidental this time. My breath caught, and her eyes flicked to mine, holding there, questioning, daring. Ryan, she began. Her phone buzzed sharply, vibrating against the table. The screen lit up with a name I couldn't see. She turned it over, silencing it without answering. The light went out, and so did whatever courage had been gathering between us. Sorry, she said, withdrawing her hand. I shook my head. It's fine. But it wasn't. She looked down at her tea, stirring it absently though she hadn't added sugar. You should focus on your internship. It's a good opportunity. There was a tremor in her voice now, the kind that hides things. Line, I said finally. She looked up, sharply. You didn't. We didn't. Then quieter. Not yet. The words hit harder than they should have. I stepped closer, my hands shoved in my pockets like I could keep them there if I tried hard enough. Then why does it feel like we did? She hesitated. Because I think about it too. Something inside me gave way. Not relief, not victory, but that dangerous mix of both. She sat down, her tone softening. You're young, Ryan. You don't realize how easily this can ruin people. I'm not a kid. I know. Her eyes lingered on me, as if that truth itself scared her. The room felt smaller. The hum of the air conditioner seemed distant, irrelevant. She rubbed her temple, sighed, and said, I don't even know what this is. Neither do I. For a moment, we both looked at the same thing, the reflection of ourselves in the window glass. Two figures caught between light and dark, close enough to touch, but refusing to. She stood abruptly, walking to the coffee machine. Do you want one? Yeah, I said, even though my hands were already shaking. When she handed me the cup, our fingers brushed, a tiny spark, stupidly electric. She didn't pull back. Not right away. Ryan, she whispered, not meeting my eyes. This has to stop. But the way she said it, barely audible, breath catching between syllables, told me she didn't believe it. I don't want to make things harder for you, I said. Her gaze finally lifted, meeting mine head on. You already do. The silence that followed was unbearable, not cold, just thick, full of everything we'd kept hidden behind polite restraint. Then, quietly, she asked, if I told you to forget this, could you? I didn't answer, because my hand was still hovering above hers on the desk, close enough to feel the warmth without touching, close enough to know what it would mean if I did. And in that stillness, with the fading sun framing her in gold and shadow, neither of us moved. We didn't need to. The moment already said everything. The next morning, everything felt different, too quiet, too deliberate. I told myself I wouldn't go near her office. I even took the long way around the hallway, just to avoid passing that glass door. But near noon, I saw her through the reflection anyway, standing with a man I didn't recognize. He was older, dressed sharp, easy in the space like he'd been there before. She smiled at something he said, not her polite work smile but the soft, familiar one, the one that used to feel like it belonged only to me. The sight stopped me cold. I turned away before they saw me, but her laughter still followed. Low, real, too easy. By the time I reached the stairwell, I hated myself for how much it mattered. I spent the rest of the day avoiding her, or trying to. But avoidance, I've learned, only sharpens the edges of what you're running from. Around 5, when most people were leaving, she appeared at my desk. You've been distant, she said. I looked up from my computer, heart already racing. You had company earlier. She frowned, surprised. You mean Tom? He's my ex-husband. The words landed heavier than I expected. Oh, she studied me. That quiet, unreadable look she always had before saying something honest. You thought it was someone else, didn't you? I didn't think anything. I lied. You're not a very good liar, she said softly. Her tone wasn't mocking. It was tender, almost sad. She set a folder on my desk, but her fingers lingered on the edge of it, trembling slightly. He stopped by to sign the house papers, she said. We finalized things last month, but he wanted to talk. Did you? Not really. But I listened. She paused. Sometimes closure isn't kind. It just makes things quieter. She looked at me then, really looked, and for a moment I saw it. The exhaustion behind her poise, the faint ache that no amount of confidence could cover. I shouldn't have involved you in any of this, she said quietly. You didn't. Didn't I? Her voice cracked on the last word. You look at me like. She stopped herself, exhaled, and shook her head. It doesn't matter. I stood up, unable to sit anymore. Say it. She hesitated, the word caught between us like smoke. Then, barely above a whisper, like I'm something you want. Silence again. My pulse was loud enough to fill the space between us. Before I could answer, a knock came, sharp, sudden. Her son's voice. Mom? You ready? We're heading out. She blinked fast, stepping back. I'll be there in a second. He didn't wait for a reply. His footsteps faded down the hall. Her hand was still near mine on the desk, trembling now for an entirely different reason. I could see every thought flickering behind her eyes. Guilt, fear, want. Ryan, she whispered. Whatever this is, it has to stop before it starts. But the problem was, it already had. And when she turned to leave, I didn't stop her. I just watched her go, realizing too late that walking away doesn't always mean leaving. Sometimes it means waiting for the next time you can't help coming back. She didn't come in for 2 days. No texts, no messages. Just an empty office and the quiet, humming absence that seemed to pull at everything I did. Her chair sat turned slightly toward the window, as if she'd left mid-thought and meant to come back. By the 3rd day, I gave up pretending I wasn't waiting. When I finally saw her car in the parking lot, my chest tightened. I didn't even think. I just went. She looked startled when I walked in, startled, but not angry. She was sitting on the edge of her desk, papers scattered, hair looser than usual. There was something softer about her, like she'd run out of energy to hide behind professionalism. "Ryan," she said, almost a sigh, "you shouldn't be here." "Then tell me to leave," I said quietly. She didn't. The silence that followed wasn't sharp this time. It was tired, full, the kind that comes after too much holding back. I thought I could just switch it off, she said, not looking at me. "Whatever this is. Whatever we've been pretending it isn't." "You can't," I said. "Neither can I." She gave a short, broken laugh. "You make it sound simple." "It's not. But it's real." That made her finally look up. Her eyes were red around the edges, not from tears, but from lack of sleep. "You don't know what you're doing, Ryan." "Maybe not. But I know what this feels like." She stared at me, searching for something she could argue with. When she couldn't find it, she stood and walked past me to the window, arms crossed tight. "I spent half my life doing the right thing," she said softly. "And now I can't even tell what that is anymore." I stepped closer, slow, careful. "Maybe it's not about right or wrong anymore. Maybe it's about honest or not." She turned then, eyes glistening in the fading light. "You think honesty makes this easier?" "No," I said. "But I'm tired of pretending I don't care." That broke something in her. I saw it. The way her breath hitched, the way her fingers twitched like she wanted to reach out and stop me, but didn't. I moved closer until we were a breath apart. Her perfume was faint, familiar now. My hand hovered, uncertain, near hers on the desk. She didn't move away this time. "I shouldn't," she whispered. "I know." Her eyes searched mine, not for permission, but for understanding. Then she reached out, her fingers brushing mine, tentative and trembling. For one still second, the whole world felt like it held its breath. Then she exhaled, stepping back, just enough. "You have to go," she said, "before we make this worse." I nodded, but didn't move. "You'll still think about it." She closed her eyes. "That's the problem. I left before either of us could break." But when the door clicked shut behind me, I knew nothing had ended. Not really. Because sometimes the hardest choice isn't walking away. It's knowing you'll never stop wanting to turn back. It's strange how easily people disappear from the places they once filled. A week after that night, her office was empty again. The desk cleared, nameplate gone, the air too still. No official goodbye, just an email to the department. "I've decided to take some time off. Thank you for everything." I read it 3 times, waiting for a different ending to appear between the lines. It never did. Her son said she'd gone to stay by the coast, just for a while. He said it casually, like it wasn't the only thing I thought about for days after. The first few mornings felt heavier than I'd imagined. Coffee tasting off, music sounding hollow. Every little thing reminded me of her. The soft scrape of a chair, the faint smell of her perfume that still clung to a folder she'd handed me. I kept working, kept pretending. But the silence she left behind didn't fade, it settled in. And yet, it wasn't regret I felt. Not exactly. Because somewhere between all the things we didn't say, something had shifted. I started showing up earlier, finishing what I started. I listened more, to people, to pauses, to what wasn't being said. Maybe that was her gift, unintentional as it was. She made me see how much truth lives in quiet moments. One night, weeks later, I was closing up when I found a small envelope tucked in my desk drawer. No name, just my initials in her neat handwriting. Inside, one line. "Some things matter even if they end." No explanation, no signature, just that. I sat there for a long time after reading it, the paper softening under my thumb. I thought about what she'd said, about doing the right thing, about not knowing what that even meant anymore. Maybe that was the point. Maybe right and wrong were never as clean as we wanted them to be. Sometimes, you meet someone at exactly the wrong time, and they still change everything. I haven't seen her since. But every once in a while, I imagine she's out there somewhere. Maybe sitting in a quiet cafe by the ocean, tea cooling beside her, staring out at the horizon and thinking of nothing and everything at once. Maybe she still thinks of that moment by the desk, the almost touch, the shared breath, the choice we didn't make. Or maybe she doesn't. Maybe it was only meant to happen once, and that was enough. Because not every love story ends with someone staying. Some end with someone learning how to leave, without pretending it didn't mean something. And that's the thing I'll carry with me. That a single honest moment, however brief, can last longer than forever. Speech balloon, what do you think? Did Ryan and Mrs. Vale make the right choice? Or did they walk away too soon? Would you want their paths to cross again, years later, when timing is finally on their side? Tell me what kind of quiet, imperfect love stories you'd like to hear next, the ones that stay with you long after the last line.